come to the northern region. The spokesperson of the National Health Insurance Scheme in Chereponi has been arrested with shotgun cartridges. The suspect, Mohammed Dushi, also known as Gushikwash, was arrested at a police barrier in Yendi on a Metro Mass bus headed towards Chereponi when police there searched the bus following a tip-off. This arrest comes on the heels of the Defense Minister's visit to Chereponi last week, which secured a temporary ceasefire and announcement that persons fueling the conflict will be fished out and severely punished. 3 persons have been killed so far in the renewed clashes between Chokusis and Konkobers in the Chereponi district. This morning, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and Interior Minister Ambrose Derry are heading to Chereponi. Martina Bugri is our correspondent in the region. Hello, Martina.
Hi, Benny.
Do we know exactly what the Vice President and Interior Minister hope to achieve with today's visit?
What we are told is that since the conflict started, the Vice President has been speaking on various platforms for the need for peace to return to the area. And so today he's consolidating that by coming here, his physical presence to engage with stakeholders, both from the Konkomba and the Chokosi side, to see how they can build on what has already been achieved.
All right, Martina, just yesterday, police arrested one gentleman who's believed to be an NHIS spokesperson in Chereponi. We understand that it was a passenger bus, right?
Yes.
And the police received a tip-off and they searched the goods on the bus and located those 25 cartridges. But the interesting thing is, we're hearing that there were 2 policemen on that bus that was heading to Chereponi. Explain to us what the police has been telling you with regards to the presence of those police officers on the bus.
What they told me was that the police would normally escort any bus that is coming or going into Chereponi. And so the Metro Mass bus was heading towards Chereponi yesterday. And those 2 police officers joined in Yendi to escort the vehicle to Chereponi. But when they boarded the vehicle, the suspect was sitting at where they normally designate for the security. And so they asked him to move back. And he said these were his goods. And so while they are sitting, they should just take care of it for him. But when the tip-off came and then they stopped at the barrier and the search was conducted, they asked who the goods were. Nobody claimed ownership. So the 2 police officers who were on board and had earlier on had engaged with him went into the passengers and fished him out. And so when they brought him up, he was escorted to Yendi. But he had denied that the goods were his. The invoice that was on top of the goods was what he had been given to send to somebody in Chereponi. But when he was brought to Yendi and further searched, they found the same invoice in his luggage. And that's what they are holding on as the police to continue their investigation. Thank
you very much, Martina. When exactly are we expecting the President and the Interior Minister? Do you know?
We are in Sapoba now. The Vice President just landed in the chopper and they are heading towards the Chief Palace.
All right, okay. I will join you shortly again for updates when the Vice President begins his tour proper of Chereponi. But we are joined by security expert Adam Bona for a discussion on the arrests made by the police in the northern and upper west regions. Grateful to have you here, sir.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to your viewers.
Are these arrests an indication that we are doing something right?
Yes, I mean, if you look at the one in the northern region that was heading towards Yendi, it was as a result of a tip-off. It means that, and I am reliably informed from the ground, that the BNI were also part of, the arrest. And so it means that what some of us have been saying all along is paying off, where if we have to fight crime and ensure we are a conflict-free country, it has to be led by intelligence. Because this day and age, you cannot deal with this type of crimes and conflicts if you don't have intelligence or your ears on the ground. And so as far as I'm concerned, I would say, yes, we are looking in, taking into consideration these 2 events over the weekend. One would say we probably did what was expected. We've got to keep it up.
Let's talk about the one in the Upper West region where a Burkinabe national is said to have carried a gun into a Catholic church. What is there to learn from how the church member handled what he saw and his suspicion in general?
Well, I think what is there to learn is the type, I listened to your interview where you eloquently you asked, I think, the gentleman who had to interrogate this strange person because probably it's the first time the person is coming into the church, to know where he was coming from. And so the calm demeanor, probably he didn't give him any room to suspect that he might be attempting to arrest or interrogate him and for them to search him. And so I think this type of communication, this type of the tidbits we give here and there, the advice, the communication, I think is helping. And so there are a lot of things we can learn from the way this particular arrest was done, because if you listen to the gentleman from what he said, he needed to know, where are you coming from? Why are you here? You've been lurking around. And he said, I'm from Burkina. And so once he said, I'm from Burkina, what it meant was that he realized that, okay, there is a need for us to probably do further interrogation to see whether this person, is he here to just worship with us, or is here to foment trouble, to undertake any terror activity on us. And so I think that it's good, and we should keep up the information dissemination. Let those who are listening to us know that this time around, those who are coming in will not necessarily tell you they are coming from Burkina, but I mean, I speak like a Ghanaian, and a Burkina Bay, someone who comes from Burkina Faso will not be speaking like a Ghanaian. And so usually, these are some of the things, the person's demeanor, accent, we have our own typical way of behavior as Ghanaians, wherever we find ourselves. Those from Burkina have theirs, those from Ivory Coast have theirs. And so these are some of the things we need to be able to understand to help us fight this type of crimes.
Mr. Bana, conflict analyst Colonel Festus Obwaje retired. He's asking government to stop what he calls the piecemeal approach to resolving the Konkomba-Chokosi clashes and properly resource security officers on the ground. He said this over the weekend on the news analysis show News File. He insists that all attempts to stop the conflict have not yielded the necessary results because the full force of the state has not been deployed to quell the situation permanently. Do you agree with him?
Yes, I agree. I think most of us, myself and Colonel, and most of us who probably would have a bit of knowledge in this area, have been very consistent in dealing, in asking states, massive state resources in dealing with, this type of conflict, that we shouldn't wait for it to get to where, we're trying to, deal with it. And so as far as I am concerned, the call is in line with what most of us are called for. Consistency is very important. If you look at the issue in Chereponi, for instance, sometimes even feeding the military officers and police officers on the ground becomes a problem, because they call them the district assemblies. You have to feed them, and they don't have the money. And if you have to deploy a large detachment of police officers, military officers, you need resources. If the resources are not there, it becomes difficult to fight this type of crime, and so, or deal with conflict. And so consistency and making sure that intelligence officers, for instance, if you take into consideration the ammunitions that were, seized or that were captured, the police officers together with the BNI retrieved in the Metro Mass transit bus. It tells us that it was they had to intelligence worked in making sure they got this particular arrest effected. Without intelligence, it's difficult. So some of us have called that, let us have intelligence officers who might be nurses, who might be traders, who might to be, in the area. And apart from that, uniformed, security officers, let's have them there. If it's going to take us a year, 2 years to deal with this issue, remotely, and trying to find out, trying to make sure these things don't occur. Because then we have the whole vice president the Minister of the Interior leaving this place to Chereponi because of this conflict. We could have done this probably a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago. And so I think that moving forward, just like my colleague Kennel did say, yes, consistency. Let's have massive deployment of security, personnel in that area, making sure that this conflict never comes up again.
Finally, Mr. Bona, when you look at what happens in other countries in terms of security at borders and border towns, take the US and Mexico, for example, a lot of investments have been made, even looking at what President US Donald Trump is calling for now. He wants a wall to be built. And so in other countries, there's a lot of investments, especially at border towns. But my colleague Rafiq Salam paints a different picture of what is happening at Ghana's border between Burkina Faso, Ghana's border with Burkina Faso. There are no police officers there. A lot of the towns there don't have police stations. What should we be looking at in terms of, deepening or increasing the level of security we have in those areas?
Well, yes, Rafiq Salam is not far away from the truth. I know the area very well. Last year, ending of last year, I spent about a week or 2 weeks in Hamile and, Kokoliko area, which is just, I actually entered Burkina and, to go, I spent some few hours in Burkina and no one interrogated me. We drove in a vehicle in there and we drove back and it's so dusty, the road is so dusty into Burkina and you only see a structure there depicting the fact that either a goodbye or welcome into Ghana. And so for me, these are, times have changed. And so why can't we actually put up, if not a very large wall, but make sure the place is good enough for pedestrians who are walking through to be vetted, those who are driving through to be vetted. That way, it is possible to reduce the influx of probably foreigners who might be hitting at you or those who will be using that arena in coming into our country. And so for me, if you can actually drive for a very long time and you won't meet any police station at all when you have to enter that part of the border between Hamile and Burkina Faso. And so for me, I'm expecting the leadership of this country to put in a lot more resources. If you look at the border between most of these borders, usually those who are crossing pay for these things to be built. So mine is that if I am not crossing Burkina Ghana border, I don't pay for the infrastructure. But those who are crossing, you've got to pay, especially those using vehicles. And that is how, other countries have done that. We don't have to dip our hands again into the scarce resources. But let's find a more convenient way of making sure that Ghanaians are protected the same way those in Burkina Faso are protected. Just, I think, over the weekend, in Northern Ireland, they discovered someone who had left an explosive somewhere. And they were able to pick it because they had intelligence on the ground. And so mine is that we've got to improve upon the way and manner we, handle our intelligence issues and also dealing with security. So that stretch, it's free for all. You can drive, in fact, from Nandom into that area and nobody will stop you. You only see 1 or 2 immigration officials who are usually far away from even that the lift barrier, the crossing barrier before you enter. And so for me, it's a place where I'm an indigent of the Upper West. And so these are things that are closer to us. Where this gun was retrieved, I might have probably driven around that area. And so mine is terrorism is closer to us than before. If we thought it's happening elsewhere and it's not going to hit us, I'm sure we've got to start revising our note because it is closer to us than before.
Thank you very much for your time. You're grateful that you could join the program. Adam Bona is a security and safety expert. But just in, the Upper West RecSec is meeting with the church leadership, the Catholic Church leadership now, over the arrest of that Burkinabe gunman. My colleagues are standing by. They'll furnish us with details when that meeting is over.